This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Back in the lab, back at it, another episode. Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. What's shaking, Reggie?
Happy Tuesday, man. We're moving and shaking, ready to rock.
Yes, sir. We got a big show lined up today after KRIS Boyd had some colorful comments for his old coach, Mike Zimmer. We'll discuss that. And the Twins squaring up against the #1 team in baseball tonight. Plus later, I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with What Does It Mean? It's all coming up on Superior Sports Talk. But first, save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family-served business serving do-it-yourselfers like Reggie and I for over 20 years. Reliably low prices for every customer. Reggie, they're practically giving this stuff away, from brake parts to tail lamps, even new carpet for your vehicle. Go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. That's rockauto.com. All right, well, Vikings cornerback KRIS Boyd had some colorful comments for his old coach, Mike Zimmer, when he joined the Patrick Peterson on his podcast, where he opened up, he let loose on the former regime. Here's what he had to say about Zimmer and the previous coaching staff. Quote, "They would always walk around with their sphincters tight, would always be strict about everything. Anytime you messed up, it's like the end of the world. KOC and them, way more chill, way more relaxed. Whatever we got to get fixed, we're going to fix. We're going to keep rolling. We're going to bounce back and figure it out." He then went on talking about the new culture brought in, saying the whole vibe. Everybody's way more relaxed as a defense, as a whole team, the vibe. Nobody's really worried about too much. Like, we really are here to enjoy football and learn and just be the best us. It's no secret, Reggie, that Zimmer was an old school, hard-nosed coach, known for putting players in the doghouse at a whim's notice. And I think there's certainly a time and place for that, I think. But Boyd was in the doghouse. Cam Dantzler was benched. He was benched halfway through the season. They brought in Bashaud Breeland the next day and started him over Dantzler continuously, even though he often struggled as well. He spoke lowly of Kellen Mond and never gave him a real chance to develop and take those second-team reps. Maybe the biggest example was cutting Daniel Carlson after he missed 3 kicks in Green Bay. All he's done is gone on and become one of the best kickers in the NFL. We know that Eric Kendricks came out and said, you can't have a fear-based led organization. Those comments have just been echoed all offseason by many others. It was clear, as much as some love Zimmer, what he did here in Minnesota, a change was desperately needed for both parties. But these quotes from Boyd really paint a detailed picture of just how bad things got at the end of Zimmer's tenure.
You know what this reminds me of? This new generation of players and people are just different. My mom is old school. You know, she's not as old school as her parents, but she's pretty old school. And you know, she governed us accordingly, governed me accordingly, I would say. So, you know, she was tough on me. You know, she was, you know, my dad passed when I was 13. And she was really, really tough on me because she just wanted me to be prepared for the world. And she wanted me to, you know, the world can be an unforgiving place. And so she wanted me to kind of develop that tough skin. So she would give me a lot of tough love, right? Well, here's my brother comes along 10 years later. We're 10 years apart. And she tried to govern him the same way. He just didn't take well to that. You know, some of the things that, you know, some of her methods, you know, to discipline just wouldn't really work on him. Like, she had to kind of refine herself and just kind of develop a different kind of way of disciplining my brother, because he just wasn't taking to that same, you know, style as I was. This is what that kind of, you know, feels like. Deion Sanders loves Mike Zimmer. You know, all the players from, you know, back in the day who Zimmer coached, they love him. Love him. He was tough on them just like he's tough on this current, group of players. Maybe he got a little bit more paranoid. Maybe he got a little bit more, I don't know, fear-based and, all those things as time went along because he was just coaching for his job. But some of those same methods, if you don't evolve with how the players are and how the next generation is, you're going to fall behind. And that's what it seems like happened. Like he tried to govern and he tried to, discipline and rule his players kind of like how he used to back in the day. And these newer guys, they're just like, look, man, we don't take to all of that. Like we don't do well with all of that. And so now you kind of have it where, goodness gracious, the day that Zimmer was relieved from head coach from the Vikings, like you got all these players who chose to speak out with the media, saying all these like things that were just like kind of like inflammatory. Like you were just like, whoa, like where did all this come from? Whoa, like Eric Kendricks, Brian O'Neill, like all these players that were speaking about, the team moving forward, moving on from Mike Zimmer. They were saying all these things that were just like, woo, okay, oh, all right, and some was a little bit more covert and you kind of had to read between the lines of what they were saying. But, now that they got the new regime in the building and, the new vibe and the new culture in the building, like players are speaking out just like KRIS Boyd and just saying exactly what's on their minds. And that is just very, very interesting because Mike Zimmer is not a bad coach. Like, I don't think you'll get anyone to ever say something like that. But maybe he just needs to refine how he deals with players moving forward because clearly as things went on in the later part of his tenure, things just kind of got a little bit sour. And players just didn't really take well to his coaching style. And I think that probably had a lot to do. I mean, we talk about the talent. I was looking at ESPN yesterday, NFL Live. Dan Orlovsky put the Vikings at like number 2 in his top 5 offensive skill players in the league. Like the talent is there. Like the skill is there. The team is there. We saw it last year. Like they could go in and compete with anybody. But some of the ways that he motivated them, some of the ways that, he responded to them and how they played and some of their actions on the field really kind of rubbed players the wrong way. And they were playing for sense of self, playing for sense of pride for the organization, but maybe not necessarily playing for him. And that's tough because when you have a leader that you can believe in, you'd want to run through a brick wall for them. And time will tell, how O'Connell, I do think he has a little bit of a switch he's probably going to flip when times get tough where he's going to be like, okay, I'm no nonsense. This is not what we're doing around here. And that's fine. But I do think that he is relationship based and he's a younger guy. So he relates to some of the players a little bit more. And that goes a long way in team morale and team confidence. And if they have a better morale and have a better confidence, then maybe you start to see that transcend, all the other stuff, and you kind of see that transfer over to the field as well, where you have success. They won 8 games last year, and they had all the, quote unquote dysfunction and all the problems with, the fear-based organization and, Zimmer benching this guy in favor of this guy for making mistakes and all that stuff. But they still won 8 games and put themselves in position to be in the playoffs in the last couple weeks of the season, and it just didn't work out. You change the culture around this thing, and maybe you think things are different. Maybe you think they might make the playoffs next year.
Yeah, very well said. I think as a coach, you're a teacher. That's what you are. When you strip everything down to its core fundamental values, you're there to teach specific players. The biggest difficulty with being a teacher is that everybody learns a little bit differently. And we know Mike Zimmer was called out for being a little bit stubborn in his old school ways, but it's so important and so valuable to be able to decipher, know, and understand when to dish out the tough love and when to kind of flip that switch and turn towards that person and give them a little bit more gentle, softer, caring love, whether you're a coach or a parent, like you just mentioned with your mom, and the differences between you growing up and your brother growing up. So very good point there for sure. Something to keep in mind when you're looking at the regime change from Mike Zimmer to Kevin O'Connell and this new school approach of being a team-friendly leader as the coach. I think it's just interesting of a topic in discussion because coaching isn't just like adding a premier free agent or a top 5 blue chip prospect. It's not quite as tangible of an addition when it comes to projecting how much more successful a team will become. Veteran mandatory minicamp picks up today for the Vikings. It's just going to be intriguing to see how quickly this team can gel together and hit the ground running or start out the gates slow like most teams usually do when learning an entirely new system and a playbook. But when it comes to KOC, just how much can changing the culture equate to more wins for the Vikings? Because we all know this team's got a lot of talent. You just talked about NFL Live, number 2 skill set in the NFC, the Vikings own on offense. How many actual wins can a new coaching staff bring to the table, in your opinion?
I guess it just depends on how well he coaches the X's and O's. You know what I mean? Like when Zach Taylor came into the Bengals a few years ago, moving over from Marvin Lewis, like it was a stark difference. Like Marvin Lewis is old school. He had Mike Zimmer with him for several years, and, you know, they were kind of dealing with players and dealing with the organization in a different way. But you know what? Players did love playing for Marvin Lewis. So, you know, it was a little bit different. But they just kind of needed to shake things up a little bit. And when Zach Taylor first got the job in Cincinnati, people thought, like, this dude is in over his head. Like, what is going on? Some head-scratching decisions. The dude is way too optimistic all the time. Like he's dressing up doo-doo and saying that it's peanut butter. And you're just like, dude, no, like it's not. It's like you smell that? Like the stench is not like that's not peanuts, brother.
That's
like,
doo-doo, baby.
Yeah, that's stanky. So like that was interesting when he came in, and then you started to see some of the players that they got a chance to bring into that organization and some of the offensive skill set that he was able to kind of develop. And then you saw that he was able to coach them to a way that took them to the Super Bowl. And so now you come in with Kevin O'Connell, and he's got an offensive background coming from his days in Washington and Los Angeles now, and now you're just like, okay, this guy's got some juju, like he's got some juice, like I like what he's doing. But then when it comes to X's and O's, like this is gonna be his first time really like calling plays full time. This is gonna be his first time as a head coach managing a football game, and he's gonna have some help, but like you just don't really know. Like you brought in a new regime and you brought in a new coaching staff. You're kind of switching things up, going from 4-3 to a 3-4 on defense. And so like a lot of things need to gel from an X's and O's standpoint. And so I guess their success just kind of depends on how well they take to the system and how well that system works in this modern day NFL. And so, you know, it's something to be said about the morale and about confidence and about culture and all those good things. A lot of times when the culture is better, the team can be better, you know, just from an overall. But we've seen good cultures and teams go 6-10. 5-11, 4-12, but they're like, man, this is a really tight football team,
right?
You know, like last season, Urban Meyer, dumpster fire, but he just kept saying this is a really good football team. We have really great people in this building, and it's just like, yeah, it's great, but can you lead them? So it's just a matter of if Kevin O'Connell can lead them and put them in positions to win game in and game out. And that remains to be seen because he hasn't done it yet.
I mean, when you look at some bad teams, they just don't have the talent. The talent's not there yet. They need a good offseason, a good draft, a rebuild. Vikings have talent already in place, and it's not just young talent that needs to be developed. It's a lot of core. I mean, there's a core nucleus of veterans there that are ready to come in and, again, start to make an impact and a big change. Love that you brought up the Bengals, by the way. Some shades of similarities going from that old school Marvin Lewis for years, a decade plus, to that new school approach, pass-happy league with Zach Taylor. Vikings fans obviously hoping for similar results and their success under Zach Taylor. Just going to be a lot of fun to see how these core veterans and rookies gel together under this new coaching staff. Again, veteran camp starts today, goes until June 9th. And then I think there's a little bit of a break there for a while until training camp starting at the end of July. Coming up, talking Twins power rankings and their chances against the best team in baseball. And later, I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with what does it mean. But first, our partners at BetOnline continue to be your #1 source for all your betting needs. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports info, including this year's basketball finals, Major League Baseball, fights, and even NFL futures. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, well, let's talk about those Twins, shall we? Stop me if you've heard this one before, Reggie. Another Twins starting pitcher was placed on the IL. Bailey Ober now will miss at least the next 15 games. He joins Sonny Gray and Joe Ryan, who's on the COVID list, not to mention Kenta Maeda, Chris Paddock, of course. Reggie, the story of the Twins season thus far is just how far the Twins pitching staff has exceeded expectations with just a laundry list of guys plugged in. But now with their 1, 2, and 3 best pitchers out of action, just how realistic is it to think they can keep this overachieving up? How long can we truly rely on this banged up pitching staff to carry this team?
I don't know, man, but it is quite concerning because you know, they are entering this tough stretch of games against, you know, the Yankees and, you know, the Rays and the Mariners, who are all of a sudden hot again. And so, like, you're like, dang, man, like, what how, I mean, there's only so much duct tape in the world before you're just like, you know what, this thing needs to go see a mechanic. Like, you got to go get this thing fixed. Like, you can't just keep putting duct tape on this and just expect the engine to run.
Just toast. Yeah.
Yeah, like the catalytic converter in this thing is out. Like this thing is dripping oil like you wouldn't believe. The duct tape ain't working, brother. Like, rip it off, take it to Midas. Get that Midas touch. Cause like the problem is with the next man up mentality, there's only so many next men.
Only so much.
You know what I mean? Like,
only
they
so
sign
much talent until there's a big drop off in just talent. These guys aren't ready for the big show yet.
And they sign Aaron Sanchez, and you're just like, okay, you know, maybe some potential there, maybe, you know, but it's just like he's got to get up to snuff because he hasn't, you know, been with the team and hasn't pitched. And so the problem is that the pitching staff, and we just talked to Nash yesterday, he called the pitching staff really one of the biggest kind of bright spots for this team and the reason why this team is where they are right now. And now you're just like, okay, like who it comes down to it now where I'm like looking at the schedule like, all right, who's pitching today? Okay, who is that? Where did they come from? Okay, wait. What's going on?
Rodriguez? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, it's just like okay, and by the way, they optioned Chi back down to AAA. So you got Bailey Ober on there, you got Sonny Gray on there. By the way, how bad is this COVID bout with Joe Ryan? He's been out for 2 weeks.
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute.
That and we're getting chatter that he may need a rehab start before he comes back. Like, this thing must have really did a number on him because he's been down and out for a while now. I thought that maybe he'd be back by now, but he's still on the IL, and that's just like, man, that's a little concerning, especially considering the year that he's had. You don't want to kill the momentum there, but it's like, look, with these, like, pitching is a premium. And you just can't keep bringing up the next guy and expecting him to to produce in the way that you want them to against a team like the Yankees. Like, this is going to be a tough challenge to try to figure out, okay, who's pitching, how well can they pitch, can we stay afloat? Because there's only so many great arms in this league, and there's only so many good enough arms to get you over the top while you wait on some of your top arms to come back, and they're just kind of in a pickle right now.
Yeah, I think we're all just sitting here waiting for this team to get fully healthy, top to bottom, for once, just one time during the season, and put it all together, the pitching and the batting. I think we just want to see how good can this team actually be. I, for one, am not putting all the eggs in this Twins basket this week. If they come out and just get pounced, Twins get swept, or they go 2 for 4 or 1 for 5 versus the Yankees and Rays, you're not going to hear me come on the show again and say the sky is falling. If they do struggle, though, fans will be worried and nervous again. But how should fans respond if they struggle against these two really good teams, knowing the status and health concerns that this team just isn't playing at maximum capacity right now?
You know, I think what you want to see if you're a fan is you want to see them compete.
Right.
You know, maybe they don't win a lot of these games. And, you know, at this point in the season, it's kind of fine, because you're just like, look, when they get back up to 100% and then they play these teams again, okay, let's see what happens this time. But yeah, it's tough, man. Like, they went and snatched 2 of 3 from Toronto, and I don't know if anybody really expected them to be able to do that, especially after losing those stretch of games to the Royals and the Tigers. You're just like, this team, like, when they came out and put like 9 on the Blue Jays in that first game against them, it was just like, whoa, where did this come from? And it was kind of that same mindset that we've kind of had with the Twins all along. Like, okay, the bats are going to be there, maybe not so much the pitching, so they're going to have to beat teams 9-5, beat teams 10-6, you know, like these football scores to win these games. And like, that's kind of what happened over that series, because it's just like, you're not really sure what you're going to get from the pitching. It's even more so now with 3+ starting pitchers on the shelf right now. You're just like, look, if we can get a pitcher to get us to about 5 innings, about 4 and 2/3 innings, and then maybe try to get the bullpen to bring us on home, like, maybe we'll be okay. Maybe we'll be all right. But the problem is the Yankees are widely considered the best team in baseball. And if they don't have their pitching together, good night. Because bats all up and down this lineup. And it's going to be hard to keep up with those bats when you talk about the Twins bats. As good as Luis Ariz has been, as, you know, as tough as it is when Byron Buxton is on, and they got their full complement of players with the bats. We still don't know about Carlos Correa yet. Like, there's just so many uncertainties when it comes to playing the Rays and the Yankees that you really don't know what to expect from these two series. But, like, you hope to see that they compete in these series beyond anything else.
Speaking of the Yankees, by the way, new CBS Power Rankings just released today. Bronx Bombers sit atop of the list, best team in baseball, followed by the other New York team, the New York Mets at 2. Twins ranked 8th this week. Article notes just how pivotal this next week will be for the Twins, who find out what they're made of against 3 against the Yankees, followed by 3 against the Rays. Yankees 1, Twins 8th, Rays are 10th. White Sox and Guardians 14th, 15th, respectively. We'll touch in on those power rankings a little bit more tomorrow. We'll see if the Twins can keep the good juices flowing against the hottest team in baseball right now. Backyard, Target Field, first pitch, 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight. Rest assured, Reggie and I will be back here tomorrow to break all that down. All right, time has come. My favorite segments here. I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports. First one up, the Rams found a way to pay Aaron Donald and keep him around for a handful of more years, making him the highest paid defensive player in the league at nearly $32 million a year. What does it mean as Donald's place in NFL history as one of the best defensive players the league has ever seen? And I'm just curious, what do you think like the next best defensive player is in the league? Is there anybody close to Aaron Donald nipping at his heels for the best defender in the NFL right now?
So to answer your first question, to put Donald up against some of the all-time greats, I think he's up there. I think he's up there probably top 3. You know, you put Lawrence Taylor in there. You know, you put Bruce in there. I mean, Bruce is like, I mean, come on. Like,
no doubt. Oh, no doubt. Nobody's going to argue with that. Reggie White, yeah.
But then, yeah, but listen, when you start to talk about guys like Reggie White and, you know, some of these other players that you may put top 5, like on that list, Deion Sanders and, you know, things like that, I think there's a case to be made that Aaron Donald is right up there with them. Like if you're putting together top 3, maybe you go Lawrence Taylor, you go Bruce, and then you go Aaron Donald. And my man's only been in the league for 8 years, but he's already approaching 100 career sacks as a defensive tackle. Game disruptor. Like, the dude is one of the best players that we've ever seen. And so, look, I have to be real about this. I've seen a lot of football. I've seen a lot of highlights, but I did not see Lawrence Taylor play. I saw a little bit of Bruce playing. I didn't really see a whole lot of Reggie White playing. And these guys were like legit game wreckers. Warren Sapp is a Hall of Famer. I think Aaron Donald is better than Warren Sapp.
No doubt.
And Warren Sapp is one of the greatest at his position. Like, before Aaron Donald, people were talking about Warren Sapp in this way because he was a big guy, a D tackle, like wrecking games, sacking guys, like at his position, athletic guy, at as big as he was. Like, but like this dude, Aaron Donald, is like almost 300 pounds. And he's all muscle. Like, we've never seen a dude chiseled like that at his size before. Like, it's kind of nuts. Like, I've been 300 plus pounds, and I didn't look nothing like that when I was that size. Like, okay, like, let's be clear on that. This dude is like chiseled all muscle, and he really seriously considered retirement. And they ponied up, by the way, worth every penny, if not more than what they gave him. And I know he said it wasn't about the money, but the money don't hurt, bruh. You know, like, it doesn't hurt. So now when you talk about best defensive players not named Aaron Donald, I think you look at guys like Myles Garrett. 58.5 sacks. He's only 26 years old. Like,
that's wild. That's absolutely
good night.
Wild.
Good night. And then you talk about JJ Watt, right? You talk about Von Miller. You know, these guys are some of the greatest as well. But I would probably put TJ Watt right there. If you're going Myles Garrett 1A, TJ Watt is 1B.
I think when you look at Aaron Donald, if he were to retire today, he may have a case for the Hall of Fame. But the longevity, if you're going to get, I mean, it's the projection that we may get another 4 or 5 premium years out of Aaron Donald. And at this pace, I think you're right. He's got to go down as one of the top 3 defensive players. Now, a guy that plays at the line of scrimmage next to the ball every single play is going to be able to impact the game. We hear it all the time. The game's won and lost in the trenches for a reason. That's why some of the best Hall of Famers that you just mentioned are all usually defensive linemen or at least front 7 kind of guys.
TJ Watt is 27. He'll be 28 in October.
Okay, so he's a little up there.
He has 72 career sacks already.
Wow.
All right. Aaron Donald is a defensive tackle. He just turned 31 a couple weeks ago. He has 98 career sacks, and that's not counting the ones that he has in the playoffs as well, because we know that total will balloon. And, you know, when it comes to defensive linemen, when you talk about the Hall of Fame, that 100 sack mark is usually like that number that pretty much gets them to Canton. Once they get to that 100,
triple digits. Yep.
Yeah. Aaron Donald is at 98. He'll undoubtedly get to 100 this season. But like you said, if he were to retire today, he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. 8-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All-Pro, 2014 Defensive Rookie of the Year, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he's on the all 2010s team as well. Like that's first ballot status right there. Like if he retired, if he gave it up right now and was just like, the heck with the money, I'm done, I want to go back to Pittsburgh and enjoy my life with my family, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And to think 12 people passed on him, including the Vikings.
Wow.
With Anthony Barr. Here's a couple names that was drafted before Aaron Donald came out of Pitt, drafted 13. Greg Robinson, number 2 overall to the Rams. Huge bust. Blake Bortles, Sammy Watkins, Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews, Mike Evans, very solid. Justin Gilbert, Eric Ebron, Taylor Lewan, Odell Beckham Jr. This is actually one of the best classes of the decade when you go back and look pick for pick. Just an absolute stack powerhouse. But just to think, looking back, it's so easy, but it's kind of fun looking back to see that 12 teams passed on the potential of Aaron Donald coming out. Again, defensive tackles not necessarily valued as a high-end position, although they are.
Jeff Fisher knew, though. Jeff Fisher knew.
He knew it was
and they
up.
had the 2 picks. They had the 2 picks to burn where, you know, they missed on Greg. Yep. That was rough, man. They thought Greg Robinson was going to be like the next like Orlando Pace for the Rams.
Yeah, they did.
And he turned out to be a bust.
If they could have got Taylor Lewan and Aaron Donald, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But Jeff Fisher, it was something he had an uncanny way of knowing about defensive players. Like when he was the head coach for the Rams, they drafted really well on the defensive side of the ball. You know, offensively, I think it was like Tavon Austin and, you know, Sam Bradford and, you know, those guys. But like when you look at the defensive side of the ball, Aaron Donald was a home run, and he was so happy to have him. But even I don't think Jeff Fisher thought that he would get the type of production that he got from Aaron Donald that we've seen, him being just an overall game record. But you look at that, you know, I'm an old school St. Louis Rams fan. It's funny to say old school, but yeah, it's been about 5 or 6 years now. But, you know, Jeff Fisher drafted Aaron Donald, Janoris Jenkins, who's made a really good career in the NFL to this point. He drafted Tremaine Johnson, who was considered one of the top cornerbacks in the league at one point. I don't think he's in the NFL anymore, but like very, very good at drafting guys. So Jeff Fisher, I think he's in the USFL right now, coaching those guys. But like he had an eye for the defensive talent, and that was probably his best decision as a head coach when you talk about the draft.
There was a 2-3 year window there where not only did they draft those guys that you mentioned, but just in their front 7 and D-line alone, they had Michael Brockers was a first-round pick, Robert Quinn was a first-round pick, and Alec Ogletree mixed in with Aaron Donald. Just on paper, when you're just looking at early assets, man. Early draft picks used on those guys, absolutely unbelievable. And then again, you go back and think, and that's without the number 2 overall pick hitting, ended up being a bust in Greg Robinson. Can't imagine if they were to hit on that pick as well.
Dude,
unbelievable.
That defensive line was unreal. You had Chris Long, Michael Brockers. You had Chris Long. These are all first-round picks. You had Chris Long, Michael Brockers, Aaron Donald, and Robert Quinn on that defensive line. Robert Quinn is probably also quietly creeping up towards a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah. I mean, that's video game. That's Madden. That's video game stuff. That's 4 first
and they
rounders.
Still 7-9, 6-10, 8-8.
Baby. That's a Jeff Fisher trademark. 7-9 every year. 7-9.
That defense was mean, man. Wow.
fun to go back and just kind of have a little flashback and look at. So easy to pick apart drafts 4, 5, 6 years down the road, but you never know at the time. That's what makes the draft so fun and exciting. All right, last one. What does it mean? The Colorado Avs completed the sweep of the Edmonton Oilers thanks to a goal in overtime to give them the 6-5 win. Now they got plenty of rest coming up. Big break, can take a breather. What does it mean for their path and chances at taking down the winner of the Lightning Rangers?
That was some epic lemon booty last night from the Oilers. Like, you thought, like, okay, they'll get this one, you know, and maybe it'll be a bit of a gentleman's sweep. Yep. But like to lose the deficit like they did, and then to come back and then lose the game like that in OT, you got the analysts swearing on live TV last night. He couldn't even like contain himself. He just holy bleeped just right there on the live broadcast. It was after 10 o'clock, so maybe it was all cool, FCC rules or whatnot. But what was interesting about that is, like, this Avalanche team may be the best team in hockey left. And you thought, like, okay, like, as good as Vasi was playing in net for the Lightning, you're just like, man, look, good luck, you know, with Stamkos, Kucherov, those guys doing it with the Lightning. You're like, man, this team is probably going to win the Stanley Cup again. You know, give it to them again. But then you look at this Avalanche team, man. Whew. Like, to be able to overcome a deficit like that and then just kind of pour it on. They're like the Warriors of the NHL playoffs right now. They kind of just cook you up, and then you're just left looking like, dang, man, like, what just happened? You know, like, they start the microwave, and then all of a sudden you find out that you're the one that got burned. You got overcooked. We're the popcorn that got left in the microwave for a little bit too long, and now the house is all funky. You're just like, oh, let me open a window in here, you know? But, like, I don't see how any team is beating the Avalanche moving forward. Like, you know, it's, you know, the Denny Green. If you want to crown them, then crown them. But they are who we thought they were. But
let them off the hook.
I think the Avalanche is who we think they is.
No doubt.
And I'm interested to see whether or not they're the team that's hoisting up that trophy come 2.5 weeks from now.
Yeah, Avs have had some really good teams over the last 2 decades, but haven't been to the Cup since 2001. It's been 21 years. Again, they get this nice big long break, just like we saw the Warriors get in the series prior to this too.
Just like they got in round 1 too.
That's right. As they watch the Celtics and Heat battle it out. Rangers are up 2-1 on the Lightning. They play Game 4 tomorrow.
That might go 7.
It might. Yeah, you're definitely right about that. All right, Reggie, you survived the gauntlet. Back here tomorrow, breaking down more Twins, Vikings, NBA, NHL playoffs, plenty more. Remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at ReggieWilsonTV and on KRIS. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.